Welcome to the Building and Growing podcast. We're delighted to have Sarah Hiraki from Smartly with us. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I think it's the second podcast I've done with an ex-Revolut colleague.
Very nice. You can't escape the world of fintech. It is.
That's
it
right.
is
Yeah.
present.
It is. And despite, I think, we met back there in 2019 and it felt like fintech was having its heyday, but it's carried on.
Oh my gosh. It's everywhere. And watching what's been happening on the scene internationally, like kids commerce, crypto, all this stuff, it's been wild to kind of watch now that I'm out of the game a little bit.
Indeed. And look, I'll hand over to you in a moment to introduce yourself, but I imagine from your role at Smartly, you're able to actually sort of have this oversight of multiple different industries and see what everyone's doing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I work at Smartly. I'm the head of creative for EMEA and APAC, and we are a creative management platform that works across a ton of global brands. If you've seen that logo anywhere, we probably work on them.
That's nuts.
Everyone from big e-commerce and tech platforms, the Ubers of the world, H&M, Nike, big apparel, and then huge in the entertainment space as well. So all your favorite streaming services work with us to make their ads better. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's amazing. And so, prior to that, we met at Revolut. So, you're now head of creative, but what was that sort of journey like to get there?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I've worked in digital advertising my entire career. I started my first job, the most Seattle creative job of all. I did production design for Starbucks, digital marketing back in Seattle when I was, fresh out of school.
Nice.
And it's been a really interesting time to be kind of a digital native advertiser.
Yep.
We've seen the space change so much, the kind of open web transition, and now so much focus on video and what's happening on social platforms.
Yes.
A huge shift in, what is valuable to advertisers and in marketing. So, what do we do with a cookieless future? How do we protect privacy? What are the ethics around all these spaces? It's just a super exciting time to get into it. And of course, right now, everyone's talking about AI.
Yes.
What that means for creativity, what that means for, art in general,
Indeed,
and also the way
indeed.
that we work.
Yeah, that's it. And, you've provided a really sort of good agenda of things to dive into. But I'll make a comment about AI because I was reading an artist who sort of did more digital art, saying that now he can't spot the difference between something he's drawn as opposed to something AI has drawn.
It's amazing. I think we have an AI labs team at Smartly, and this has been, front of mind for us.
Yeah.
It's changing so quickly. The fact that we couldn't produce pictures of people with 5 fingers anymore.
Yeah.
Now you can.
That's nuts.
The things that we're doing, the little things that you'd normally need a very bored production designer to do, we can now automate. And then, of course, sky's the limit on where it goes in the future. So it's cool.
Indeed. And I think, that really has a positive impact for say Smartly and other organizations that help clients with marketing, because it means you can bring on more clients with the same amount of staff. That's great from a business model perspective.
100%. It's great for scale. And I think it automates, a lot of creative folks are nervous a little bit. Certainly we have to be careful and ethical about how we use these tools. But for me, it provides us a better starting point so that my team of artists, creatives, real people with, thoughts and feelings beyond just production design or kind of the grinding stuff.
Yes.
When you can automate the boring tasks, it frees up so much headspace to build a stronger team, to engage with each other, to engage with your customers, and to spend time doing the creative bit.
Yes.
If you can just, use prompts or, use autofill background generation. I'm no longer airbrushing clouds into the background of images. I can instead know what I want, get there faster, and that helps everybody out.
Fantastic. That's amazing. So look, Sarah, let's dive into Smartly and, how it started. What pain points did it initially set out to solve?
Sure. Yeah, Smartly is about to turn 10 years old.
Wow.
We were founded in Helsinki, Finland. Now it's a global organization. I actually worked for a company called AdLib, which was started by some other ex-colleagues.
Yes.
And we were acquired by Smartly and have become one with Smartly 2 years ago.
Yeah, congrats.
We have set out in different ways. So the AdLib platform was very focused on video and display originally, so working heavily with Google and YouTube and channels like that.
Yeah.
Smartly was a kind of founding Meta partner, like very much in that social space and coming together. We have now kind of covered the globe in terms of the channels, the experiences, and the formats that we cover.
Excellent.
Really what our focus is making better creative that is more beautiful, more relevant, more personal, more scalable,
Yes.
easier to execute for brands. And of course, you can reach people with that creative. You can, speak to them in the way that you want to.
Yeah.
You can engage them with more interesting creative, especially, we've talked about things like content creation and kind of non-advertising-y pieces of work. And then also learning from them. So like learning what's working, what audiences actually like.
Yep.
And I think that's what's really exciting too, is that because we're so focused on creative and we're so focused on the science behind it, it's a lot about creating entertainment experiences, more engaging experiences, rather than just trying to push for, click through or those kind of simple metrics that we used to do. It's much more about talking to people about what they want to learn about, being helpful. Advertising as kind of a service, an extension of brand is super cool.
Indeed, yeah. And I love that because, nowadays even algorithms, I think, are like favoring, dwell time and that on, like a video or an image. I saw LinkedIn has actually brought in like an AI writer to write your posts, which in my view, it's like, all right, if AI is just going to be writing everything, the algorithm will move to focus on, dwell time on images and videos.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's the things that we engage with the most, and the way that we spend time now with content has really pivoted from, I guess, what we were kind of bombarded with. And now it's much more about choice, which is really interesting for me. It's much more about how we want to surround ourselves with content, the things that make us feel good. I think especially, post-pandemic, we're spending so much time online, like that engagement hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
So now we're, curating these spaces that feel like positive or helpful. And I think people are a lot more intentional about what they want to watch and what they commit to.
Yeah, indeed. And when it comes to, the channels, you mentioned that you're supporting clients across multiple different social channels. Are you able maybe to highlight which ones are the most popular at the moment?
Man. I mean, I think our CEO likes to say, like, never bet against Meta.
Yeah.
Meta is a absolute powerhouse. They're releasing new ad formats and products, and the amount of dedication they have to reaching people and forming communities is massive. So, still going strong there. I think we're all obsessed with TikTok. I personally am very, very into that as a channel. I'm a TikTok content creator as well.
Yes.
And so just any vertical video space, especially as an advertiser and as a creative, has given us like, we're now playing 4D chess in these spaces. So as an advertiser, I know that I can make more engaging content. I can take someone from never knowing about my product to loving it within the space of 10 or 15 seconds with video, which just isn't as possible in other channels. And then as a content creator, someone who likes to watch stuff and make stuff, it's just so much more interesting to be building out experiences, to be telling stories, hiring more artists, hiring content creators to make this amazing content. And there's this kind of democratizing as well that's happening on TikTok, which I think is very, very exciting.
Yeah, indeed. And look, I love, the fact that you've alluded to both what's really popular at the moment in terms of video first, those vertical videos, and then the fact that there is 4D and virtual reality and augmented reality, which is coming into it. Are you seeing a lot of advertising taking place in virtual reality and augmented reality?
We're starting to see it. I think it's a tough channel to build for, and it's a hard one to know what will win when you invest in that space.
Yes.
We are seeing a lot of it, start to come out more as kind of case studies and I think experiments.
Yes.
I bet we're going to see a lot more, especially as tools to generate, things like 3D models. Using AI to simulate, conversational advertising.
Yes.
I think all of those kind of more immersive experiences for the brands that really focus on tackling that space, I think we're going to see some really cool examples. Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. And so look, Sarah, what we've covered so far is the fact that Smartly helps out with, let's say, the content creation for multiple different channels. You've also, I suppose, touched upon the fact that there are different channels and different trends in there. So I imagine that strategy is another business line that you offer. But are there any other services that Smartly offer that you want to dive into?
I think one of the most exciting ones is automation.
Yes.
So how do you enable marketers to spend less time doing data entry, monitoring feeds, refreshing things?
Yeah.
Having automated solutions that let your ads speak directly to your stock levels, to price fluctuations, to offers, automated things like retargeting of customers, using that behavior that we know each walled garden or each channel has kind of encapsulated to reflect back into the way you're advertising.
Yep.
It just makes everything so much easier. Less time staring at spreadsheets, more time, deciding what to run and who to speak to. And the automation part is maybe the unsung hero. But we talk about it a lot at Smartly, but automation's really powerful.
That's great. I'm going to dive straight into one example you gave there about linking ads to inventory. So let's say that I've got a shop and, I've got like 1,000 of one product, but only 100 of the other, but I've been running ads on both. How quickly could you create an ad that focuses on the 1,000? I guess the question is not only how quickly can you make the ad, but how quickly can you deploy it and start seeing an impact?
Instantly.
Yeah.
All you have to do is set up logic. There's so much stuff I've learned as a creative person about how computers think and how logic works in this space. Setting up logic that will push products that you have more inventory of, that you have more sizes or specific sizes of. If certain products don't need help to sell, you take spend away from them. You put investment behind things that do. So having that logic built into e-commerce and to retail is great.
That's fantastic. And look, you mentioned a lot of sort of enterprise clients earlier on. Do you just service large agencies, or in the e-commerce space, for example, you often have a lot of smaller sellers? Who do you sell to mostly?
We have a really wide breadth of customers we work with. We work with enormous global brands. We also work with a lot of regionally specific companies around the world, across Asia, Latin America. And so we're really running the gamut. I think Smartly's power is that it's a tech platform first. We're technology first, and then we're services wrapped around it. So it allows our customers to really kind of coordinate their own experience, use the tools. It's a huge platform, has so many tools, use the pieces they really want and really need. Usually for a lot of our customers, that starts with basic, creative templating, the automation through feeds and connections to platforms like Meta. And then, when you take it all the way up to, the highest echelon, you're running a global business through Smartly with, full creative management, with strategy, with all these things that really pull together and are the engine room of your marketing.
Fantastic. That's great. And Sarah, earlier on you mentioned the fact that you are a TikTok creator. Can you talk us through that journey?
Sure. Yeah. So after I left Revolut, I'm an American citizen, so I had to apply for a new visa. This was during the pandemic, so things were moving very slowly, and I was really enjoying a break, the first significant break in my career ever. But I knew I wanted to do something creative, and something maybe that I finally had time to do.
Yes.
So I was joking with some friends and I was like, maybe I should just become like a cool TikTok girl. And they laughed because while I was a avid social media user, I didn't have any more followers on any other platform than the average person.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself a challenge of, can I crack TikTok in the next 30 days, 60 days? And so I came up with a content strategy. I'd never done this before.
Yeah.
Came up with a content strategy. I knew I had to, the best practice of TikTok, use your face, talk about what you know, find a niche, decide on the kind of creator you want to be.
Yep.
And then TikTok, if you want to grow, you have to post all the time. I was posting 3 to 5 times a day.
Wow.
Every day. Without fail. I spent all this time recording, editing, and this was, TikTok a few versions ago where it didn't have things like auto caption.
Oh,
so
it's a manual typing.
Working my thumbs to the bone, editing. I was shooting and editing in the TikTok app, so everything was native. I started with content which was things that like interesting facts or like things I wish I knew so I could be like the ultimate pub quiz champion.
Okay. Nice.
So I started with like, so you don't know anything about opera, and so you don't know anything about American history. And then that steadily grew into this series on creativity and logic and representation in media and like all this stuff. And I went viral a few times just through sheer commitment.
I remember a post you wrote about going viral on, you published it on LinkedIn, but there were some massive stats. What was the largest reach you got from one of the videos?
Gosh, some of my biggest ones, over a few million, over a couple million views. I think now I'm at hovering around 59,000 followers.
Yeah,
I've obviously pumped the brakes a little bit on posting as often now that I'm with Smartly and have other projects on, but I still post when I feel inspired, and it's like super nice to have an outlet. And
for sure.
I've had this this great opportunity on TikTok, which I didn't expect, to like cultivate a community of like a lot of like professional women and creative. I have this like Asian girl Illuminati. I'm friends with like lawyers, sommeliers, other marketing professionals, people with clothing brands, and journalists, and we all kind of have this thing on TikTok. And I never would have had that without it.
Yeah, excellent. I guess like normally I'd save takeaways to the end, and I will come back to those ones. But I guess if anybody's thinking about getting involved in TikTok, becoming a creator, what are 3 top tips?
You have to be brave.
Yeah.
You just have to commit to it. Be very open to learning because the TikTok community will give you a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
I got comments when I started posting videos, your audio is too low, your audio is too high,
no.
You should do this better, make your videos downloadable. Like I was getting social media tips from just being on social media, which is really interesting. And you have to be, the easiest way to do content creation is to be yourself.
Yes.
To only talk about the things you know well. That's the only way you can really maintain that if I tried to put on a facade or be something else, I don't think it would have been possible to keep up. So you have to figure out where you're comfortable being and then just turn that into your content strategy.
Indeed, yeah. No, love it. And I can agree with you. I mean, the number of people who have given me like podcast tips that, everybody has a different preference. It's super interesting.
Yeah. One with like the democratization of the tools.
Yeah.
Which I guess, connects back to all the stuff at Smartly is like, we've leveled the playing field. Like everyone can be a content creator. I saw a stat recently, I think it was from TikTok, that maybe it was YouTube, I forget now. I think it was something like 41% of Gen Z consider themselves content creators.
Far out. Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah.
Like, so we are all artists, which is, as creative people, is something that we talk about all the time. Like, you don't need to have a creative title to be creative, but we all listen to podcasts loads, I'm sure. It's suddenly it's the old trope of everyone's a copywriter. Now everyone's a video producer, a podcaster.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's nuts. And like you mentioned about the release of auto captions on TikTok. I mean, if you're just making something, I made I tried to make a reel for my girlfriend's birthday, and I failed at making the reel how it was meant to be made, but it was super easy compared to 10 years ago when you had to put all the photos on the computer and get a song to go with it. So it's nuts. It has been democratized.
It's amazing. And it's challenging too to be selling creative services or selling a creative product when there's so many good ones out there. And customers are very savvy, like brands are very savvy about what's in market, and whether it's them themselves or them like looking over their kid's shoulder and being like, if my kid can build a whole universe in like Roblox, this creative process should run better. And, it forces everyone to level up.
Indeed. and look, going back to, I suppose, some of the services that Smartly offer in the context of trends in marketing, because I think we can break that down into two categories. The first one is, let's say, marketing operations. And then the second one I would say is like the creatives themselves. So in marketing operations, you touched upon the fact that you've got real-time feeds, which can allow you to link ads to, say, inventory. And you touched upon sort of automation as a whole, but are you able to discuss some other, let's say, marketing operation trends?
Sure. I mean, workflow optimization is huge, and closing the loop on what we learn. I think that's where there's a lot of promise, but a lot of, marketers, it's hard to, complete your reporting loop, finish a campaign, learn from it, and actually put those insights back into the next one. I think it's hard to close that loop, because once you've delivered something, I think the tendency is to be like, it's out the door, see you later. But committing to that cycle of learning and optimizing, it's something that we do a lot every day. And but I think at a micro level, so did that ad work? The automation says yes or no. Here's how we change it. Here's how we test it again. And then also at the macro level, like what our audience is responding to. Are our brand campaigns working? How are they working? And then how do we feed that back into our marketing strategy?
Indeed. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because you can look at the result of an A/B test and be like, all right, A worked, that's great, but then how do we apply A onto 3 other campaigns? 100%. And so the fact that you're able to help out with that is a great help to your clients.
Totally. Yeah, it's one of those things, like we talk about the basics, CTA testing or things like that, and you want to move on from those things because those feel like very basic tests, but like when you talk to digital marketers, do they actually know what their best CTA is?
Yeah.
And for whom? So all of those things, being able to track those in one place and apply those learnings is critical.
Excellent. And one question I have, it's about a post I saw on LinkedIn, and so it may not be fully relevant, but the person was talking about audiences that in the past have been like segmented by demographics, so by age, location. And this person was arguing for audiences to be segmented by pain points, which, something in the B2B like SaaS world, you always have to identify pain points. But, you're working with a multitude of brands. How do you help them sort of segment those audiences?
It's really interesting. That's an excellent point about pain points. I like to think of it as behaviors. Like, there's some classic advertising examples, right? That Old Spice was not, it's a product for men or marketed toward men. It was mostly being purchased by women. Yeah. So if I just show Old Spice ads to men, I'm missing out on a huge segment of addressable audience.
That's nuts.
And so they pivoted their strategy to market toward women to say, this is what your man could smell like, kind of thing. So when we look at targeting audiences, I care much more about behavior.
Yes.
Did they engage? Did they linger? Did they click? Did they buy? Do they feel good? All of those things, much more so than, especially kind of now what feel like very outdated segments around age, gender, marital status, wealth. Those things really don't impact what kind of laundry detergent I want to buy.
Indeed,
many other things do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so look, moving on to the creative bucket now, I think it's a great time to talk about it because you mentioned behavior. So what creative types are you seeing, work the best, and how is behavior tied into that?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones is ads that are helpful or deliver value and service
Yeah.
more than just shouting at you to buy something. There's like, we always hear the anecdote of like, I'm tired of these shoes following me around the internet.
Yeah.
Show me something I actually want, show me something I need. And your automation, your algorithms, all that stuff, properly identifying behavior, linking it back, learning from it. That's how you make that stuff more helpful. But I think especially with the rise of TikTok and, more vertical video, we're watching ads or we're watching content to learn something, to get something, to, whether it's behind the scenes footage of Beyonce's tour or, how to keep your shoelaces clean, whatever it is, like we want to derive value. And so I think a really great thing we're seeing from advertisers now is a focus on ads delivering value rather than just selling.
Yes.
I'm going to give you something that you will take with you today.
Yes.
And that will form a more positive, more helpful brand association. At my previous agency, I worked a lot with Google. And so Google's positioning as a brand is all about helpfulness, ease, making your life better, making your life easier.
Yeah.
And so we made ads that just exemplified the product through, you can ask this ad a question. You can, this ad will provide you some kind of value. And I think that's a really nice for the consumer. That's a really nice and like non-cynical trend that we're seeing a lot.
Indeed. Yeah, fantastic. So look, really educative focused ads.
Totally.
Super important. You mentioned vertical video a few times, and we're seeing that more and more, not just I guess on TikTok and Instagram, but even more professional platforms like LinkedIn. I've been guilty of doing landscape videos on LinkedIn. However, we do have the frames for vertical ones to be released in the future. It's just a matter of when.
The way people used to shame everyone for posting vertically oriented videos or photos, like turn your camera the other way, and the devices have won.
That's
like,
right.
We're vertical
now.
Yeah. Advertisers using those formats is so important. Being aware of, things as simple as the form factor of where your audience is watching things, whether they have their headphones plugged in.
Yes.
The AirPods have given us, that push. Now we're sound on.
Yeah.
All the common knowledge used to be designed for sound off by default, and so we're in this new wave of it. I think brands are getting really excited about it in great ways. They're investing in creators. They're investing in more playful, entertaining content, and they're getting much better at like remixing assets. We're seeing a lot of emphasis on that. How do you take your movie trailer, your TV commercial, your professional shots, and make them suited for these spaces where the visual language is a little different.
Yes.
The audience behavior is a little bit different than if I'm just watching, pre-roll on a big screen. Yeah,
indeed. I think that the repurposing of content is super, super beneficial. It's amazing how far a couple of subtitles or captions, and a little animation here and there can go to making it feel more like it belongs on TikTok or Instagram.
Completely. Yeah. I think, we've all fallen victim to watching like bad reality show clips that have been like shoddily repurposed and put on a vertical video platform. But yeah, it makes such a difference when brands really care about it. I've seen some great examples, even just like film trailers are such a good kind of case study for it.
Yes.
Where they've, they replaced the kind of in a world, they replaced the big flashy voiceover with auto-generated speech just to make it feel more at home on the platform, which is great to see.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And look, with these platforms and their algorithms, there's been a lot of people who have been able to gain a lot of impressions without spending any money. Sometimes the algorithms are built in a way that business accounts, are never going to go viral unless they're spending, money on ads. What are you seeing businesses do when it comes to choosing between an organic strategy as opposed to a paid media strategy?
That's a great question. I think when it comes to organic strategies, especially in vertical video, the focus has to be entertainment. Teaching, entertaining, being funny, being clever, highlighting something that people would actually like. Would I actually watch this?
Yes.
If it wasn't shoved in front of my face. And you have to build up that kind of It's a lot about trust. It's a lot about rapport, about expertise. So, if it's a travel company, I don't just want them to shout at me about they have the best deals.
Yeah.
Like, give me a life hack for how I should be, doing things, or show me amazing places I should be inspired to travel to. You can't just be like, knock, knock, did you know?
Yes. Yeah.
We have cheap tickets, or, whatever. And then when it comes to paid, then you have permission in that space. It's labeled, it's kind of boxed up, and it's also going to be targeted to the right folks in the right mindset.
Indeed.
Then that's the time to say, by the way, you're really going to want to see, this offer or this deal. And so having a slight change of tone between the two, I think, is important. But also what we do a lot of is making sure that they're united, making sure that what you're seeing in a paid placement is going to feel consistent, though, totally different from organic stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. And, we've discussed the audience a few times and targeting. And earlier on in the podcast, you talked about a cookieless future. So I'm wondering whether we can dive into how companies currently build audiences and how that will change in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. We used, in a previous, lifetime ago, we used to be able to scrape so much information about people. We talked a lot about, my last agency at the creepy line.
Yeah.
Like, I can put your name, your town, your postcode in an ad and show it to you.
Yeah, which is nuts.
Will that make you feel good about my brand? Maybe not. And as we begin to step away from that data, it becomes less about data and more about relevance, context, behavior.
Yes.
Most people will still opt into things if they find them useful, helpful. Again, like going to marketing as kind of a utility.
Yeah.
And so, like, we like being retargeted with things. If I sign up for, an email, or I fill my cart and then you remind me of it, there's a chance, like, that's a helpful interaction.
Yes.
So I think, like, the way that we're targeting people now is much more about behavior, much more about things that they've opted into.
Yep.
The challenge is that because, the average person spends time on fewer and fewer websites now than, we did 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
All that information is in its own little buckets. And the challenge, across the marketing platforms, and one of the challenges we're trying to help customers with is how do we connect the dots across these walled gardens so that you're telling a story that's consistent and that you're reaching people in the right ways. Yeah,
fantastic. That's great. And what do we expect the sort of timeline to be to move to completely cookieless?
I mean, the changes in iOS have been massive. There's been huge impacts, and we've seen those already make a huge difference. I think that was, Apple governs so much behavior online that those types of changes I think are really important. We saw with GDPR, everyone has to click an extra window now when they open a website.
That's right. Yeah.
That was a major change. And I think the last one is Google, when Google finally decides to deprecate cookies, which they've been hinting at for a long time. But I think, you have to be prepared for the big changes now and get your marketing strategy in line with it ahead of the regulations. Because that's what we all want is a more transparent, a more helpful, a less spooky environment to operate in.
That makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna hit you with two questions about two different channels, right? Okay. So one I consider a bit boring, one I consider to be maybe the future. So first one is, what's your view on email marketing and the future of email marketing?
That's a good one. You have to really do it well.
Yep.
To not bug me with email marketing. Again, like, people, if you give some people something valuable, they love it. If not, then, how many email threads have you, signed up for? You're like, oh yeah, I could use a fact of the day. And then you're like, spam.
Haven't opened it for months.
Yeah. I think if your copywriting is really strong,
yes.
if the content inside, if the offers, and also the frequency, getting that right, it is kind of boring.
Yeah,
But just seeing those brand names in my inbox every day, even if it's just my like daily ritual of cleaning them out, it's still a brand impression. It's still front of mind.
Yeah,
so
it's a touch point.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, is no publicity, or is there's no such thing as bad publicity? Like, if you're a little bit in my way every time with an email, but I still saw it, so
that's it. Yeah, it's controversial in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
But be clever with it. Be good with it. Oh, and don't like email marketers that put the kind of emergency, Sarah, this message is for you, or I'm writing to you for the last time.
Yeah.
None of that. None of the scary stuff. Keep it light.
And none of these like salespeople are like, oh yeah, just floating this back to the top of your inbox. I'm like, well, you can join the 10 other people today that have sent me the same email.
Man, yeah, or the ones that say like forward, urgent.
Yeah,
get out of here with those. No.
Nuts, eh? All right. Well, look, and without biasing the question, what do you see the future of marketing on channels like ChatGPT and Bard being?
Oh my gosh, huge question. I think those platforms, for my like quite pedestrian knowledge of the world of AI and machine learning, they are so based in what they're drawing from.
Yes.
They are exclusively based in what they're drawing from. And I think there's a great opportunity for certain utility type of brands that have expertise. Your Under Armours, your Nikes, your HelloFreshes, whatever. When I ask a question about an area of their expertise, I would love to see that information is co-signed by some of those brands, just to give me that added layer of transparency. How possible that is, I don't know. And certainly I don't want to see this answer sponsored by Coca-Cola necessarily.
That's right.
But I think there's so much potential for distrust and misinformation and things like that I like, as a kind of, in my own content creation, I'm very careful about citing sources. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I would love to see sources cited.
Yes.
Obviously, we're hoping that some of them are Encyclopedia Britannica or like medical journals.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind seeing one, if it was a research study by Nike, or I'm asking about top selling products, in the world.
Yes.
And it's co-signed by a brand, I would be all right with that.
Yeah. And it's a really good point that you've made, because what you said at the beginning in terms of the models being built off a database or one layer is completely true. And so it's about, can these brands potentially plug in? On another podcast I did with Firat, who's a data science expert, he and I spoke about the fact that maybe you can distribute with like revenue share agreements. If you're looking to book a hotel, for example, if the hotel's booked through ChatGPT without actually having to go through the Expedia or Kayak plugins that they have, ChatGPT takes a revenue share. But actually, this could be another one where, if you're researching shoes and then you do end up buying one from Nike, then
I mean, I think we cut this part of the podcast out and we just start. This is a startup idea. This is a $1 million idea.
Yeah. Well, we've got the marketer, we've got the data scientist, and I can pick up the phone. You
heard it here first.
That's it.
But yeah, I think like there's some brands already doing it. Adobe, for example, like their AI image base is purely through images they own through the Adobe stock system.
Yeah.
And so like I should be able to trust that resource, that the images are ethically sourced imagery. This is kind of wild that we're getting into that, but like, that they own the rights to the images, they're not ripping off artists, and everyone's been compensated, hopefully, appropriately for what they've done. And
indeed,
if we do the same thing across other areas of knowledge or creativity, I could definitely see automations from companies like, I don't know, Squarespace, if I'm auto creating presentations or things like that, like
that's it.
Just having that co-signed by a brand I trust.
Yes.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, well, look, exciting times. Let's see where it goes. Sarah, we've covered a lot today, and thank you so much for sharing everything with us. Before we wrap up, I'm actually, you're probably going to be the guest that does the most takeaways ever. I'm going to ask you for 3 takeaways, which are for, let's say, enterprise marketing.
Sure.
And then we'll go on to personal takeaways afterwards.
Okay. Gosh. Agility.
Uh-huh.
We are in an age of everything changing super, super fast. Rules around platforms, they're adding new ad formats all the time.
Yeah.
Government regulations and rules around privacy and everything like that. I think the number one thing for marketers, if you're a CMO, if you're a creative director, running a marketing team or working with marketers, is stay agile.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the olden days. We don't sign off budgets, a year in advance. Like, be ready to move your money, to move your brand's look and feel, move your tone across the way that things are changing, and building in a system, the kind of administrative side, building in a system where you can move and roll with the punches is the most valuable thing that a marketer can do. 100%.
Fantastic.
Don't get too married to the budgets or the plan or even like some of your brand assets. Be ready to kind of break things apart, and then you can do something more exciting with them.
Fantastic. Yeah, excellent. Any other takeaways on the enterprise marketing side? I mean, that's a huge one.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I got to think of 2 more.
Yeah.
I think the same thing about like content creation when it comes to being present. There's an amazing study that I quote. My team will laugh because I quote it all the time.
Okay.
From Google and the behavioral architects. They did this whole brand study.
Mm-hmm.
It encompassed a ton of things, but one of them was how a fictional brand can steal market share from a beloved first choice brand by doing certain things. And so the first thing that you can do to either steal market share or retain market share is to show up.
Yes.
You have to show up on all these platforms. You might be a heritage clothing brand, but if you don't advertise on TikTok, there are a ton of people that don't know who you are.
Yes, indeed.
It doesn't matter if you've got a huge flagship store and you're a historical important brand. You have to show up, and that is a really big logistical challenge. So obviously I would recommend working with a creative management platform that can help you achieve that at scale seamlessly. But you have to show up. Like, you have to bother, even though it's tough to embark on a new channel, a new style of marketing.
Yeah.
That's really important. And I guess like in this, the third one can be in this fast moving environment, I think it's really easy to lose sight of creative, like good creative, to kind of like step back and be like, would I actually watch this video?
Yeah.
Do I actually like this image? You know, does this help someone? Does it make me smile? Don't forget to like take a second, have a breather with your assets, and ask yourself, like, do I like this? Is this what I want to put out?
Yeah.
And if not, make it better.
Yeah, I think that's a real key point, because there's no point doing marketing or creating content just for the sake of it. If you don't like making it, then don't post it.
Yeah, 100%. We want to avoid that kind of race to the bottom.
Yeah.
We're as a creative working with enterprise brands, it would be easy to become cynical.
Yes.
But if you surround yourself with great people and great tools, it makes the process of creation really fun.
Yep.
And then it should, instead of having it be a kind of a race to the bottom of performance and grind, it becomes like, how do we elevate brand assets? How do we make things more helpful, more fun, more entertaining?
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. And look, I mean, is there anything that you want to share in terms of personal takeaways? What helped you get to where you are now?
Sheer dumb luck and grit. I've been so lucky to work with so many amazing people. The founders of AdLib, and then getting to know the team at Smartly has been just like gasoline on the fire of my own growth and creativity. I'm very grateful for all the opportunities, all the like camaraderie and friendship from folks like you, at Revolut and at past roles. Like, it's such a small world
It is
that we live and work in.
Yeah.
And there's like a wise saying of like, ideas don't matter, people matter. And as we're like doing all this crazy stuff together, I think like, being able to reset, use the tools, work a little bit smarter, spend more time with your people.
Indeed.
Building something cool has been great.
Yeah. Fantastic. Look, Sarah, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic podcast, very insightful, and I think can almost be used kind of as a playbook. For people who want to make their businesses and brands stand out more.
Hell yeah. And a free startup idea for the first one to take it.
That's it. If anybody uses that, please give us some equity.
We want it.
That's it. Yeah, we should IP it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lucas. This has been great.
Thank you, Sarah.